So I'm Janet Collins, president of the Institute of Food Technologists. I'm a PhD scientist in food chemistry. I'm also a nutritionist and dietitian, and I'm a certified food scientist. What that means is that the combination of things that I put together in my educational background as well as my experience is that I can communicate about the intricacies of not only what is the science of food, but also the application of food to the diet and exercise. Most of the foods that each of us put on our tables today are processed. When you talk about mayonnaise, a product like mayonnaise, or a product such as a canned fruit or vegetable, those are processed foods. The fact of processing doesn't change the nutritional content of a food. What is important in terms of nutritional content is the calories, the fat, the protein, and the carbohydrate that the food contains. One of the questions that we often get about processed foods is the ingredients that they contain. Those ingredients, sometimes called food additives, are sometimes words that most of us can't describe or say. But what they are intended to do is increase the shelf life or safety, change the flavor, and they're chemicals, yes, they're chemical names, but they're fully regulated in the United States, absolutely, and I think here in Argentina as well. Very recently, a number of publications have come out from scientists who've actually evaluated the role of processed foods in nutrient contribution to the diet. So what we know is that the foods that you choose, not because they're processed or unprocessed, but the foods that you choose help determine whether or not your diet is healthy or unhealthy rather than the food itself. From the beginning of the processed food industry, which is in the early 1900s, we have been regulated in terms of the safety and the quality of the food that goes into the food supply. Here in Argentina, there are a number of regulations associated with foods and with food additives, so that the foods that you purchase you know can be safe. You know that if they're on the grocery store shelf, that it's something that has been acceptable to the government as a safe product. There's no difference in safety between something that's fresh or something that's processed. But the reason that we're concerned about it is because we don't understand the food supply. We don't understand food safety and we don't understand regulation. And in fact, the food industry has not done a good job of explaining it. So most of us who've been trained as scientists talk in science speak. So when you ask me a question, I'm going to answer it in a way that's scientifically correct, but something that you don't understand. So the food industry scientists who've worked on new technologies and processing have come to scientific meetings, to the media, and talked about their science rather than the importance of what they're doing, why they're doing it. So when I talk to you about, for example, why a specific ingredient would be found in mayonnaise, what you might say is, I don't like the idea of that ingredient, and I don't know how to tell you what that ingredient is so that you'll be assured that not only it's safe, but it's adding to the function of the mayonnaise. Without that processing aid or that food ingredient, mayonnaise wouldn't exist. So I think that food safety for consumers is probably not really the issue or the question that they're asking. I think when most consumers go to the grocery store, for example, or to a kiosk, they assume that the food that they're purchasing is safe. Their real question is about, is the process that's used something that they're comfortable with? Does it fit with what they're thinking about? And so, for example, a canned or a frozen fruit or vegetable, somebody would ask, is that as safe as a fresh one just off the tree? And the answer is yes, nutritionally it's just as good. But the question of safety comes in when consumers don't understand, when we haven't given them a good idea of what the processing industry is or what it does, and what manufactured foods look like. So in the grocery store, when you see processed foods, typically most of us aren't thinking about safety. We're thinking about quality, we're thinking about nutritional content. And so we again, the food industry, have not done a good job of helping consumers understand the role that food processing has in the food supply, particularly for those of us who live in cities. So as a scientist and as a mother and a grandmother, what I'd say is that the information that's available to me about foods is confusing. The sources of information from popular books, from magazines, from the internet, sometimes misleads or confuses us and makes us think that something is less valuable or safe than it actually is. So trusted food information sources are really important, and talking to people who are knowledgeable or have some background in the area is also very important.